fiction, which is already becoming a reality, how to open the green door to the future, the net profit of a clear country, and it is possible to prevent global warming. Alternative energy sources, unique technologies, and what you never knew existed. Life science, watch it now. They smiled and looked at the city. We cannot say that their house was smiling too, but the warmth of human breath reached the walls and built-in sensors immediately responsive. Despite the fact that the cold increased, the equipment recorded minus 45 degrees outside. The temperature level inside the house increased from 22 by 2 more degrees. Faruk Tarihov, Window to the Future in 20 Ahead. Today in the program. Technologies of life color. Currently, the use of green technologies is very important, not only for Kazakhstan, but for the whole world. Hot Finnish houses. And Finland is a cold country. It's given by nature 40 times more heat energy than Finland is able to consume. Can you imagine?
Тепловой энергии, чем ее способна Финляндия потребить. Можете себе представить?
Why to warm the street? Keeping heat in the house, we consume less heat, therefore we spend less money.
Меньше тратим свои деньги.
And where did fogs go from the Albion?
Тумана нету больше.
No more fog. This stereotype still exists, in my opinion. In all stories, foggy streets, you see no one. When one destroys what warms and how to turn the problem into a success, green technology, the warmth of your home. An average morning for Amir in Almaty near Koktebe. Every day before going to study, he photographs the city. This interest came about 2 years ago, and all this time, comments by Amir rarely differ from each other. As soon as I moved here, this smog does not allow me to shoot, and it feels like it's getting closer and closer. Misty smog over Almaty 3 decades ago, rising to Koktebe, tour guides told tourists that it is the best point to enjoy the city view at the foot of the Ili Ala Tower. Today, it's a big luck to see Almaty from this green hill. In Almaty, climb to Chimbalak and look at the city, or try to see Chimbalak. At 7 in the morning, you can see the mountains, and at 8 they'll be gone. This is our ecology. Today, the whole world is slowly but surely moving in the green direction. The basic principle is do no harm, neither the environment nor to humans themselves. In fact, a lot is done in Kazakhstan in terms of legislation. Programs were adopted by Kazakhstan. Well, we call it the concept of 2013 of economy transition to green technologies. It's believed that the so-called green construction not only saves energy but also contributes to climate change mitigation. In other words, build according to international standards, and global warming may not be so global. According to the world statistics, buildings make about 30% emissions of all greenhouse gases. Half of the wood consumed in buildings, up to 20% of the drinking water, and half of the garbage that we produce is made inside buildings. Therefore, the impact of buildings on the environment is very important.
Производится внутри зданий. Поэтому влияние зданий на экологию, оно очень важно.
Here, for example, the standard 5- or 4-floor apartment house in a standard neighborhood. There are thousands of such houses in Kazakhstan.
60 квартир, 100 примерно.
60 apartments, about 150 residents, about 4,500 square meters. In your opinion, how much derived air concentration is produced by the boiler station in order to warm it?
Для того, чтобы его отопить, котельная выбрасывает в год веществ допустимой концентрации.
And it is quite tangible in the form of dust, soot, which immediately provokes a variety of allergies, lung diseases, and other troubles. This combination of products and CO2 and suspensions, because we warm houses, sometimes with gas, sometimes with coal. In volume, well, probably it's difficult to tell the number. A huge amount, maybe 86.5 tons. That is 2 railroad cars. And this only refers to one house. The number of machines and buildings is growing, and the number of green spaces are reduced. In 2010, the international rating company listed Almaty in the 30 most polluted cities in the world. We have a sad joke, of course, but in Kazakhstan we have the periodic table not only in the soil but also in the air. We breathe with the periodic table, with a complete set of elements. Of course, much of the air pollution is produced by road transport, but the buildings make their contribution too. Currently, our boilers work with solid fuels, partly with gas, but for the most part with solid fuel. Therefore, in winter, the fog could be seen quite clearly in Almaty.
В зимнее время в Алматы особенно видно, да, вот этот смог.
If you look at the lower part of the city, which is warmed with coal at best and at worst, with tires and rubber, it's terrible.
Там просто страшно.
Almaty adopted not quite the good experience of London. The good old London and not the green times of Sherlock Holmes. There was no other way to warm up, and everything was stifled by smoke. Every Londoner tossed coal or wood in the fireplace. Earlier, powerhouses were heated by coal. There were several of them in the city.
Электрозавод, станции были. Там в Батырси есть большой очень. И в другом конце города нисколько было.
The Industrial Revolution brought even greater contribution to the formation of this historical phenomenon, the London smog. It had the name, the Big Smoke, Pea Soup, and all-pervading nightmare, according to the author of Dr. Jekyll and Master Hyde. A story which is unlikely to be happening unless the Albion was really foggy, as confessed by Robert Louis Stevenson. The London fog, it was once the hallmark of London. The misty reality was more dangerous than literary. Londoners even had to use lights during the day to avoid falling into the Thames or under an omnibus. Chronicles of accidents and statistics say that for a week, more than 1,000 people died from respiratory diseases in London. All changed in December 1952. Toxic sulfuric fog covered the British capital for 5 days. The scale of the tragedy amazed the world. Smog claimed the lives of 12,000 people. Laws about clean air prohibiting the burning of dirty fuels was adopted in the UK 4 years after the tragedy. They no longer use coal, I think more than 20 years now. The gas from the North Sea is transported, so there's no more fog. Though not immediately, the fog slowly disappeared and respirators were left in the distant past. Today, environmental procedures are followed in the UK. Even pigeons equipped with special sensors sometimes test the purity of the British skies. However, London is still quite far away from being a green city. It is no coincidence, perhaps, that in 1990 Britain designed the rating evaluation of the environmental performance of buildings, BREEAM. Management and health, energy and transport, water and materials, waste management and use of land, pollution. The more points, the higher the rating.
In each sector of the economy, we should think how to save the natural resources and what to do to lower the pollution.
Outside the kingdom, more than 200,000 buildings are certified and about 1 million are in the process. Here, for example, one of the buildings is already listed in the environmental rating. We are currently in the business center of the Tower Park View office, the first business center in Kazakhstan and Central Asia which received the English certificate of green building, BREEAM. Here, everything is in business. Building materials are ecologically clean, only energy-saving light sources, sensors save water, waste is recycled, and exhaust warm air heats the rooms again. We're in the ventilation room. Here, equipment is located which provides air purification and provides a new fresh inflow. Well, it's clear about fresh air, the double purification, you can breathe in deeply. But then the scene of fiction novels comes, when the breath of a human also heats the building. Note the recuperative heat exchanger. That's not a magical device that allows the use of heat already received more than once. Some people ask, how did we get it there? Maybe we breathe the same air. But no, we do not. The streams are separated. The regenerative heat exchanger is an unmixed type, air passing through the plate. The air is divided into incoming and outgoing. In order to reduce the load on the heat exchanger, respectively, to spend less thermal energy. We use an intake of thermal energy from the outgoing air. So every person in this building contributes, creating heat energy and no friction. We breathe, we produce heat, we are human beings. We produce the heat which is accumulated. You produce the warmth in the room, and it goes through the vent, through the building envelope, etc. So part of your energy that you have produced went into the ventilation and will be collected and returned back. Thus, you are the source of heat. It's estimated that the so-called greenhouses use about 70% less electricity and thus reduce emissions and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Moreover, in such buildings, you work better. According to expert opinion, the efficiency of the green office workers is increased by 30%. The outflow of air from the room is naturally cooled by giving the heat to the incoming air. Therefore, the air discharged to the street does not create a thermal effect around the building. The air is clean. It is delivered consistently here. And it is comfortable to work. Because because office work is basically a brain activity, of course, oxygen is important. And a lot of such buildings will be built in Kazakhstan in the near future. Today, no country can live according to the formula, developing now and ecology later. It's repeatedly said by the President Nazarbayev. Not so important is how many square meters are certified, but how many buildings. Importantly, how many people still reflect on what can be done a little differently, and it is inexpensive, and they begin to apply it in practice. It will become the standard for the industry, and therefore certainly our ecological situation can only improve. If we talk about green technology, then at the moment there is a realization of the project, Green Quarter. It was the draft name, now it's called the Expo City. The first power-positive district. Everything here will be according to smart green technologies and international standards. This waste recovery, gathering of melt water and the conservation of energy in general, it is a long list. Of course, we will not be able to make existing buildings completely green, but it can be significantly improved, as was done with Empire State Building in New York. In the meantime, today, most of the buildings, not only in Kazakhstan but in the world, we can say, warm the streets. A very large amount of heat is simply released into the air, and we pay for it. While this heat reaches our homes, it will be lost during transportation. Then, in the house, the heat is lost through the cracks, through the windows, through the vents, and so on. The unique technology that allows all this waste heat back into the house for several years is used worldwide. What is it? It is the air temperature, the sun, warmth, and the temperature of groundwater, lakes, rivers, and so on, emitted by heat. Temperature that is not recovered to the present moment. For example, Finland receives the amount of required energy 40 times more than consumed.
Раз выше, в 40 раз больше количество энергии, которое необходимо, чем то, что потребляется.
Moreover, no construction commission will in Finland approve the building after checking if it turns out that the temperature drops for more than 1 degree per day. Good houses are like thermos. It will not share the warmth with the street. The optimum and certainly considered pleasant floor temperature is 22 degrees, the air from 16 to 26, and humidity about 40 to 60%. It's possible to determine the losses that are in our homes, the heat loss. Thanks to infrared imaging, it shows by the equipment we can immediately determine where our warmth goes, where you need to make insulation. Of course, this is not the Empire State Building and not a Finnish cottage. It's Almaty, a private house. Specialists armed with thermal imaging inspect and diagnose. This is the dark area where the cold goes. The use of alternative sources is the next step towards a green economy and savings. First, we need to learn how to efficiently use what we have. First of all, what's interesting for the tenants of the house? Keeping the heat in the house, we consume less thermal energy. Respectively, we spend less money on heating the house. More than 50% of heat loss falls through the walls and the roof, up to 40% drainage, the rest in slots and windows. So, we do not only spend our money on heating the streets, we will also directly affect the environment. And that is not for the better. The less the house consumes, the less environmental emissions produced in our energy-producing plants. Everything else is now dependent on the owners of the house. Fortunately, it is not necessary to travel far for Finnish technologies. In the near future, the plant will be built in our own country, which will produce equipment needed to keep the heat in every house. This is the global trend today. It's a transition to the green track. Made in Kazakhstan, technologies of the future and the present, which can be seen at the exhibition Expo 2017 in the unit of technologies and the pavilion called Warm Stop.